We believe so much in technology at CPR that we don't actually charge our advisors anything for technology. What is really great about that program is it allows firms like ours to pre-populate it with all of our portfolios and all of the allocations that are inside of each portfolio.
I'm Garrett. Welcome to the Advisor Advocates Podcast, bringing the latest industry trends and best practices from leaders of the top firms in the financial services industry. All right. Welcome back to the Advisor Advocates Podcast with Justin Reinhold, the Vice President of CPR Investments in Rochester, Michigan. Justin, thanks for joining me today, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. We had Charles and Nancy on a couple shows ago, and we talked about CPR as a firm, and then I just had the pleasure of sitting in on a call with CPR and another advisor earlier today, and you were showing some of the technology that you all use there, and I know that's one of the really cool things about the culture with CPR is you do try to stay out ahead of the cutting edge of technology, and I can do episodes on technology, and there's a lot of softwares and things out there that everybody's familiar with, and they're sort of the household brands that everybody in the industry knows who they are. But I have to say, on the call that I just sat in, there were several that you showed the other advisors that I had not heard of before, and I think a lot of other advisors may not have as well. So speak just a little bit about some of the technologies that you use that are maybe not the ones that a lot of advisors may realize that are out there.
Yeah, sure. First, I'd like to say that we believe so much in technology at CPR that we don't actually charge our advisors anything for technology. And I know that's a big thing at a lot of other firms where there's a list of costs being associated with a RIA firm or a broker-dealer. And one of the ones that I always constantly see pop up is the technology cost. And that's because technology does cost money to have all of these great tools and all these great programs that can help you do all the planning and all the things that you need to do with your clients. But we believe in it so much here that we actually make all of the tools available to our advisors for free. I think pretty much almost every advisor by now has heard of Redtail. So for a CRM tool, Redtail is our main tool for that. I won't get too much into Redtail, but one of there's two great things about Redtail, at least in my opinion. One, it's a great place to keep all of the basic information on your clients. Now, you can keep extremely detailed information, but it's a great place to at least just keep a tab or a profile on every single client and just have all of their basic information all in one place. So it's kind of like a modern day Rolodex. Instead of having something on your desk that you would flip through, you can just flip right through it on their website, on the program. But the other cool thing about Redtail is there's a notes section in Redtail where you really ought to fill the notes section out, because what Redtail has done is they have actually integrated time stamping into their notes section. So when you write a note about a client, we talked about this, client was happy with this, client wasn't happy with this. When you're putting those notes in there, it's really great, especially to have that timestamp ability, because if there's ever an issue later on with the client or God forbid a lawsuit, the notes section in Redtail is actually admissible in court because of the timestamping. So I mean, in my opinion, those are the two best things about Redtail. But we also have financial planning, and right now we're using eMoney. It was a really great tool, but unfortunately they've made some changes that have made us take a look at Money Guide Pro and Right Capital. So I'm not going to speak too much on that right now, because we're still kind of in this transition period where we're trying to figure out if we're going to stay with eMoney or if we're going to switch over to one of the other companies. But one of the great things that eMoney used to have, you could on the fly input, the client's current age, their retirement age, their life expectancy age. You could put all the accounts that you want to put into the assumption or the retirement plan, put your own assumed growth rate, your own assumed inflation rate, and just play around with it. And right there on the fly, within 20, 30 minutes, you could actually basically tell someone if they're going to reach their retirement goals or not reach their retirement goals. And it would even give you tips like push your retirement back so much, or contribute more money per month, or take more risk and put the money to work harder into something that grows faster. It was just really nice to be able to sit down with a client, and in 20 or 30 minutes, it's not an exact plan. We can go into more detailed planning. We could put more factors in there. We could do a lot more and build the plan into something that's really comprehensive with a full report that's 100 pages long. But one of the great things was just being able to kind of sit there for 20 or 30 minutes, get the basic information, and just see are we even close or not to the client being able to retire. We also use another software called Stratify. And what's great about Stratify, especially for a firm like ours where we are sort of a TAMP where we create portfolios for advisors to use, and then they plug and play the portfolios. So what's great about Stratify is not only can you go in there and get a risk tolerance score, a 1 to 10, how conservative or aggressive a client is, which there's a lot of programs that do that, or even simple forms out there where you can kind of figure that out. It has that in there, but what is really great about that program is it allows firms like ours to pre-populate it with all of our portfolios and all of the allocations that are inside of each portfolio. And then when you meet with the client, you can take their statement, and if the statement only has a couple holdings, you can just type them right in there and compare their portfolio to one of our portfolios. Now, if let's say their current portfolio with someone else, either at a 401k or another financial advisor, if there's a whole bunch of holdings on the statement, they actually have the ability the software can scan the statement and populate all of the holdings. So you don't actually have to go in there if you don't want to and manually type in every single little holding. It could scan 100 holdings and pre-populate it within a minute. It's pretty unbelievable. And then you can go right into the planning and compare their current portfolio against one of our portfolios, or even a combination of portfolios. You could pick 50% one portfolio, 50% another portfolio, and actually see how the portfolios performed against each other over the past 5 years. Cumulative returns, annualized returns, maximum drawdowns, Sharpe ratios, time to recover, get all of these different metrics, actually comparing the portfolios apples to apples, so you can make a good decision of which portfolio to put the client in, and the client can actually see, wow, had I been with this portfolio for 5 years, I would have come out this much ahead. Any type of scenario like that you can run with the client. So I think that's really great software. One last thing to add about that software too is you can create an investment policy statement. So after you've sat down with the client and you've compared their current portfolio and you've identified which new portfolio that they're going to transition into, you can create an investment policy statement, which is basically a legal document that goes over why you're making all these changes. It compares the old portfolio, the new portfolio, outlines why you're making all the changes, everything that you discussed, and then the client signs off on that at the bottom. So one of the things we like to do here at CPR is we like to be extremely compliant, and we just think that if you're sitting down with the client and you're doing the planning and you're taking notes and you're putting it in red tail and you're doing proper analysis and proposals, and then having a client sign an investment policy statement, it makes it pretty hard for the client to ever come back later on and say, I don't know why you put me into this investment, because it's pretty detailed and outlined right there why we decided to do what we did with your plan. So those are some of the basic things that everybody should have. Everybody should have a client relationship management tool. Everybody should have a financial planning software, and everybody should have some way to show the client all of the metrics about their current portfolio and all the metrics about the portfolio that you're recommending. I mean, those are very, in my opinion, very basic things that every advisor should be using when they go to meet with clients. A couple of other tools that we use that I think are pretty cool. We have another software called UpLead, where you can search for your prospects. So at CPR, I always tell all of our advisors, what you really need to do for prospecting is figure out what your target market is. Is it we're here in Michigan, so we have the big three automotive companies here. Is it maybe the managers at the big three? We can get a list of all the couple thousand managers at the big three. For other people, it might be nurses. So if you want to get a list of all the nurses in a specific, we could do the whole state, we could do a region, we could do a county, we could do a city, or we could even do it zip code by zip code and get a list of a few hundred or a few thousand nurses in your area. But once you identify your target market on UpLead and you download all of these prospects, and it's really cool in UpLead because you can download, you get all of the information. You get their personal cell phone number, their business cell phone number, their personal email, their business email. You get all of the information, and you can actually search for this data any way you want. So like I was saying, you could search for a specific company like General Motors and get all of their managers, or you could search for nurses and get all the nurses in your area. But once you get a list of those prospects, you can then put it into another software that we use called Levitate. And Levitate will actually take the CSV file with all of that data and pre-populate it, boom, right into Levitate. So then you can see all the prospects that you just got from the UpLead system in Levitate. And once they're in Levitate, there's a few different ways that you can go about prospecting these people. But one of the top techniques that we recommend doing is creating a monthly newsletter. So for some people, they might be, you could call it the nurses newsletter or something like that if you're going after nurses, or the mechanics newsletter if you're going after mechanics. Whatever it is, you can name it whatever you want. But what you can do in Levitate is set up a campaign where whether it's a few hundred or a few thousand prospects, you can set up in Levitate where this newsletter goes out to them once a month. And what I really like about Levitate compared to other firms or services that offer this type of reaching out to prospects and trying to send them marketing materials about yourself is you are actually setting up a campaign that's attached to your email. So when these people receive these marketing materials or your monthly newsletter, it looks like it's actually coming from you, even though all you need to do is set up the newsletter and get the content that you want in there. But it'll actually personalize it so that when it sends out to Jane Smith, it'll say, hi Jane, blah, 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 or hi John, blah, 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 blah. You just set up one template and it goes to all of them and it comes directly from your email, which is a big deal because if you're hiring a marketing firm to go out there and try and get leads for you, and they're using MailChimp or one of these big email services where they're sending out mass emails, a lot of times the email will not actually make it to their inbox because Gmail and Yahoo and a lot of servers are programmed now that if they see a lot of emails coming through all at the same time, like a bulk email, it will reject all of them. So if you're using Levitate and it's coming from your direct email, it will actually make it to the person's inbox, or at least have a very, very high chance of making it there. And then what you can do in Levitate is you can follow up with the prospects by actually seeing if they're opening your emails, unsubscribing from your emails, and if they want to respond to you, it's actually coming from your email, so they can just hit a respond email and send it right back to your email. And then what you can also do is look at, if somebody's opening your emails 3, 4, 5, 6 times in a row, with UpLead, you have their phone numbers. You have their business phone number, their personal phone number, their personal email, their business email. You can actually pick up the phone and start reaching out to them and say, maybe I've noticed that you've been opening my emails. Would you like to set up an appointment? I'd be glad to do a free financial plan for you. I don't know. Anything that works for you, you can fine tune it to whatever works for you in your process. But it's a really, really great way to go after prospects. Now, inside of that same Levitate system, you can also put your current clients. So you can get a list of all of your current clients from Redtail and actually drop them right into Levitate. And what you can do with your current clients is send them, an email on their birthday, or an email on Christmas, an email on Thanksgiving, maybe a 4th of July email, or maybe you can also send them your monthly newsletter so you can stay in touch with all of your clients without actually having to specifically type out an email to each individual client. So it's a really great system for both prospects and for existing clients.
Yeah, and that's something that I've had a lot of experience or personal experience with the emails, because when I was working with a recruiting firm before I started Advisor Advocates, we were that was an issue I was trying to help them tackle, was how do we get emails out to advisors without being spammed? Because
Yep.
when we would use something like Constant Contact, everything that we would send, your open rate would be something like less than 1%, I believe, on that.
Yep.
Which, industry wide, I mean, you would like to see your open rate, 10 to 20% would be fantastic.
Yep.
And I spent a lot of time on this trying to figure out how to tackle it. And what I use now is I guess a software, a plug-in to my email server, so that I literally type the email from my email account. It has my same signature. It looks exactly like it would be if I just sent you a regular email. And my open rate and my click rate is ridiculously high compared to what it would be through a Constant Contact type of arrangement, or MailChimp, something like that. And it's interesting. There's a local business here that I go to. I frequent this business or go to this business all the time, and I would put it this way: I want to get their emails. You know what I mean? There was an email in particular I was looking for a while back, and I had to go through it, and I finally found it in my promotions folder, my spam folder, or whatever, because they're just using one of these email generator tools that, or these mass email tools. So if you are doing email marketing, figuring out a way to send bulk emails that do look and feel as if it was something that you personally typed, it helps your deliverability, and I think it helps your the engagement. I mean, I've literally had people respond back to these bulk emails thinking that I had just typed them an email, personally to them. They don't realize it was part of a bulk. Most of them do, but sometimes they'll miss it. So it helps with the personal feel and with the engagement. But deliverability is a huge thing. If you nowadays, like you said, Yahoo and Google are getting smart enough that if you're just sending out a bulk email, there's like I said, your open rate is going to be a fraction of what it would be traditionally.
Oh yeah, no, and even like I have one advisor who's targeting managers at the big three, so all the emails are at GM or at Chrysler or at Ford. And if you're trying to send out a mass campaign to 2,000 different people at the same time using one of those services, it's pretty much going to get rejected. I have found using our system that we're getting about 90 to 95% of the emails sent are actually being delivered, and we're getting about a 30 to 40%, sometimes 50% open rate on these emails. And now it doesn't mean that people are beating down our door and calling us and responding like crazy, but one of the things that people don't realize is that you have to stick with a drip campaign. If you just send something out once or twice or three times to someone, they're never going to remember. The really successful campaigns are where you keep doing it, and you do it for years and years and years, and the first year or two you might not even see really anything of success come out of it, but what happens is it looks like a hockey stick where it's gradually rising, then at some point it just takes off like a rocket ship.
Well, and here's a really good real life example of this, and you may not even realize this, but when CPR first scheduled time on my calendar to discuss our working together, I looked at, anytime I get a new calendar invite, I'll go back and say, okay, which email did they respond to? Which campaign did I send? Because almost every calendar booking that I get is from some type of an email campaign. And I couldn't find you guys. I'm looking through, I was like, where is this? Where do these guys find me from? And when we got on the call, I believe Charles said that he had gotten an email from me like in November. He was just now getting around to scheduling the call with me. But it's one of these things. A lot of times, I'm starting to get to that point now in my business where 2 years ago I wasn't getting nearly the return on investment, so to speak, on my email campaigns and things like that. Yeah. But now I'm getting a lot of these that just pop up on my calendar out of nowhere because I sent them something 6 months ago, or I've been constantly putting something in front of them every month. So you're right. Long term, I get that hockey stick analogy. I like that because that is the way it goes a lot of times. But if you stick with it, it's a very cost-effective way to market. I mean, it's ridiculously cheap how much I pay per click when I'm going through email marketing, as opposed to like traditional or digital advertising.
Yep. No, and Another thing that is, that I just thought of, I had another advisor who's been using Levitate. He came over here from a large investment firm. He was on a team there, had a large book of business, and he's had a hard time getting a hold of some of the larger clients that he knew very well over there. So he decided, you know what, I'm going to put their email into the Levitate system, and they'll just catch my monthly newsletter that I sent out. And just in the past couple of months, he's actually had 2 appointments, one with a client that had $5 million and another one that had $2 or $3 million. And they go, I'm sorry, I've been meaning to call you back. But I've actually been getting your emails now, and I just got one today, and that's what reminded me to call you. And so, $7 million worth of business in the last couple of months just by throwing people into this system where it just constantly reminds them, nice. I'm still here. Reach out to me anytime. It really works. So it's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, and I love that CPR. I love what you said about not charging advisors for the technology, because that is there are a lot of nickel and dime charges on advisors' income statements, so to speak, and a big chunk of that is going to be your tech cost, and they range across the board. You can have something as little as $10-15 a month, no big deal, and other things that can be $300 or $400 a month. So that's it's valuable sort of in 2 ways. One is obviously the monetary side, but it's also simplicity. The advisor isn't responsible for going sorting through a dozen different technologies and trying to put together the most cost-effective package. You're including that for them, so they're not having to worry about that.
Yeah, and what's also great too is we have training programs on Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesday we'll do the higher level overview of technology from time to time, but on Thursday we really get into the fine print and the details of all these technologies. So, and it's great to have everybody on the same page. When every advisor is using a different CRM and a different financial planning software, it gets really hard to train them and get people set up so that they're comfortable and they know how to use the software when they're meeting with clients. When everybody's getting the same technology for free and there's training on it 2 times a week, and of course you can always call us anytime and get one-on-one training if you need it, but it creates this synergy where everybody's on the same page and everybody's familiar with the same thing, so advisors can actually start helping each other out, and not even just, obviously we're always here, but it's this really nice thing that I've been noticing where everybody's just kind of feeding off of everybody else. Like, what are you doing on this program? What are you doing on this program? And we've really fine-tuned a really, really great process. I think when somebody meets with a CPR advisor, it can be any of our advisors, they get a really, really good experience because the client feels comfortable knowing that, we're not here just to sell you the one thing we have. First of all, we have my dad talked about it on the prior podcast about all of the different portfolios and unique investment options that we offer, but we're not just a shop that has a couple of tools and we're trying to put everybody in the same box. We have unlimited investment options, so what we really need is the tools to figure out what are the best investment options for everybody. So our technology, I think, it takes the meetings with these clients to another level that I've had many times where clients will tell me halfway through our first initial meeting, they'll go, I have never had another investment advisor explain everything to me, the whole process, the investments, and to a point where I actually understand what I'm investing in and what we're doing here and what the goal is. And so it's pretty nice to have all this technology and to be able to use it with clients because it really creates a really nice first impression with your prospects.
Yeah, it's technology and information is one of these like double-edged sword. I don't know if double-edged sword is the right word there, but it's good that we have all this information, but then it gets to a point where it's information overload, that you've got so much information to crunch that your answer's in there somewhere, but it's a needle in a haystack, right? So now as these technologies come in that allow you to sort this universe of 100 billion different investment options down to the 25 or 30 we actually want to have in the portfolio, We almost have the opposite problem now of what we maybe had 30 years ago. 30 years ago, we didn't have enough information. Now we got too much information, right? So having the technology to sort through it is an important piece of that. So, well, Justin, really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today. We'll get you on here again, and we'll talk. I want to dig in a little bit more on investment strategies and hear a little bit more about how do you sort that 100,000 universe down to the 25 or 30 holdings for each portfolio. But in the meantime, any advisors out there who are looking for a solution or considering going independent, CPR has an awesome offering there, a very straightforward process for advisors. Be happy to introduce you. You can give me a call at 919-561-2436 or send me an email to Garrett@theadvisoradvocates.com. All this is probably on your screen right now, and it'll also be repeated in the outro, and it's in your description below. So definitely no excuse for not being able to find my contact information. I'll litter the screen with it. But happy to make an introduction if we can. And Justin, it was a pleasure having you on here today. Enjoyed this is 2 hours in a row we've been chatting, so enjoy the time today, and I'll see you next time.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Garrett. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for watching or listening to the Advisor Advocates podcast. Really appreciate it. If I can help you in any way, please feel free to give me a call at 919-561-2436 or send me an email at Garrett@theadvisoradvocates.com, or feel free to use my calendar link, which will be listed in the description below. Thanks again for your time. See you next time.